Good morning, everyone. This is Vita with the Vita View, and I'm doing something new today, something a little different. I am actually recording this, and I am live on Facebook. So I'm doing something a little bit differently today so that I'm able to share this with my Facebook family and also upload it to my YouTube channel. Check out the view, the Vita View with Vita J. That's me. And let me check to be sure that I am live on Facebook, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. So let me see here. It says I'm live. So let's get going. All right. So welcome once again to the Vita View. And I am Vita J, your host. I guess that's what you want to call it. But I am the founder of Building Brighter Kids, and I help parents, educators, and other child advocates build villages around our children so that they can be unapologetic in their image, in their identity, in their intellect, and in their inherent God given gifts. So, thank you so much for joining me. Today, we're going to be talking about sparing the rod and spoiling the child. What is discipline? Where has it gone? Do we need to bring back the days of yay and nay? What's going on with our children? And so, we're going to talk really, I won't be before you long on discipline. It's something that I'm finding and I'm seeing that a lot of things are happening in our school systems, in our classrooms. Teachers are burned out, teachers are leaving because I've heard that there's a lack of discipline with our children. And that is one of the key components to building brighter kids is to discipline and understand what discipline is as it relates to building our children brighter. So, the four components of what I do, the framework of what I do for building brighter kids is called the VITA framework. And it is vision. The V is vision. The E is education. The D is discipline. And the A is action. So today we're going to talk about discipline and what it means to discipline our children, what it means to help them to develop and to grow into adults who one day contribute positively to society, because that's what we want for all of our children, correct? If you are watching this live, please in the chat put live. If you're watching this, hashtag live. If you catch the replay, put hashtag replay. Please share this with your friends, your family, on your Facebook page, other social media platforms, because it is my desire to help parents, to help educators, to help others who are invested in the well-being of children, to build them bright, to build them strong, to build them healthy, to build them whole. So let's get into it, shall we? We have heard the phrase, um, spare the rod, spoil the child. I know my mom used to use it when I was young, when I was growing up. I would hear her say, I can't spare the rod, spoil the child. And people made that biblical, but that technically isn't in the Bible. That second part is not in the Bible. Spare the rod, spoil the child is a proverb or an adage of sorts. But the Bible does talk about sparing the rod. And the Bible mentions, I'm going to pull up my Bible now. That's what I'm looking at now. It says, um, withhold not correction from your child. This is the King James Version. For if thou beatest him with the rod, he shall not die. Thou shalt beat him with the rod and shall deliver his soul from hell. Let me find a different version of that same scripture. I like the New Living Translation. Don't fail to discipline your children. The rod of punishment won't kill them. Physical discipline may well save them from death. So that's one of the scriptures related to discipline. And another one is spare not the rod. If you spare the rod, you hate your child. Something of that nature. And I can't pull that up right now. But anyway, We talk about sparing the rod. And I believe that discipline is key to developing our children and to growing them so that they're not just loved by us, but they're liked by other people. To be honest, when we're out and about, and our children go places, we want for other people to want to be around our children. We want other people to welcome our children into their circle, to invite them into their home, their schools, their churches. And discipline is one of the key factors that helps with that. Now, I am a proponent of spanking. I'll just put that out on the table, point blank, period. I am a proponent of spanking, but I am not a proponent of beating our children. And there is a difference. And I think that we have thrown the baby out with the bathwater as it relates to disciplining our children with a spanking. Not all children need to be spanked. And I'll use my three, for example. I probably can count on both hands the number of times I've spanked all three of my children. And they will tell you they can remember the spankings that they got. And they're even now as adults and a 16-year-old, and my two are 27 and 23, they can tell you, they remember the spankings that they got. And they're able to tell you, yeah, mom, I agree. I should have gotten a spanking for that, you know. But discipline is a balance. It sits in the middle. It sits in the middle between indulging our children and abusing our children. So we have to find that middle ground to disciplining our children. The root word of discipline is disciple. And to disciple means to teach, to give opportunities to train, to give opportunities to try, to give opportunities to fail, and to be corrected. When we think about discipline and we think about that spare the rod, spoil the child, I think in our community, sometimes we have taken that too far. Because oftentimes when we are disciplining our children with a spanking, it's usually that hit or that spanking is it comes after some type of frustration from the parent, some type of anger. And that hitting or that spanking is a lashing out because I need to control your behavior. I need to control you so that you don't get on my nerves. I need to control you so that I can do what I want to do or need to do. And one of the things I have found too in our newer generation of raising children and bringing children up, that we're not spending enough time disciplining or discipling, I should say. We're not spending enough time discipling our children. We don't let them know what the expectations are. We don't let them know what the consequences are prior to the action happening. We're not communicating with them the routine and what's necessary or the rules to follow. We wait until they break a rule or until they step out of line or until they push our buttons. Then we lash out with the smack or with the spanking because we're frustrated. That's not discipline. That's abuse. Then on the other end, we have parents who don't do anything. They're their children's friends and they don't want to hurt their feelings, and they don't want them to dislike them. They don't want to ruffle their feathers, so they don't say no. They don't discipline. They don't show any type of routine or any type of structure or framework around the authority in the house. That's indulgence. That's also a form of abuse. Discipline is in the middle. Now, I am, like I said, I am a proponent of spanking, but I didn't spank my children after they were 5. Because by the time you turn 3, 4, or 5, you can reason. You know, when you're 5, when you're 6, 7, 8, you understand if I say, don't touch this, and I put it on the table. When you're 5, you know that you know not to touch it. And touching it is defiance. you know? So when you're too young to understand, there are other methods of disciplining our children at a young age. And I'm not saying spank children at 9 months or, when they're babies or anything like that, because they're learning, they're developing, they're growing. They need to touch things, they need to experience things, but we have to provide those opportunities for them, So when they're young, I remember one thing I used to do with my daughter. I would hold her close to me and I would speak into her ear. Kia, this is not how we behave. Mommy said not to do that. She understood. I didn't have to spank her, but she understood the tone in my voice. She understood, she could feel it. And that's the other thing. When we speak to our children, there's an energy. Words have life. Words have energy. The tone of our voice has energy, and it vibrates, and they feel it. That's a form of discipline when you speak to your children with a certain tone. I remember I had a friend that would say to me, I would be confused in your house because you don't ever yell at your kids. I wouldn't know if you were hugging me, telling me you were proud of me, or if I was getting ready to get punished. You just, I don't know the difference. And we laughed about that, but I didn't. I didn't yell at my children. If I use a firmer tone, get over here now, they understood that. I never had to raise my voice and yell. I said, get over here because at that point, you're at the end of your rope. So when we discipline our children, we are discipling them. And what a disciple does is carries out the lessons and the understanding when the master isn't there, when the teacher isn't there. So I was able to trust my children when they had to stay home by themselves or come home from school. you know um, they knew that I had to be able to trust them not to let anyone into the house. I had to trust them to come home, take their clothes, change their clothes, empty their lunchbox. I had to give them the routines. I had to give them the direction so they would know what to do. Children don't always know what to do. So that it's important as parents that we tell them, that we let them know what to do. What are the expectations? What are the routines? You know, what this is what I expect. This is the outcome that I'm looking for. And then allowing them to communicate back to you. Now, old school parents, you couldn't say nothing back. My way or the highway, you know? And that has to change. If you are a no, my way, no way, my way, the highway, whatever I said, if that's you, I invite you to include your children in a conversation, because children come here knowing who they are. Even as babies, they have the blueprint from their creator. They know who they are. We as parents get the divine privilege of partnering to develop these children, to help grow them up in who they were created to be. So allowing your children to express themselves, allowing your children to say, I don't like that. I don't want to hug him. I don't want to hug her. I don't want to go here. I don't like this vegetable. Allowing them to express and to communicate their feelings. Teaching them and talking to them, even prior to having to discipline them with maybe a spanking. You know, this is what happened. This is what needs to be done. This is why. You know, um, I believe that there has to be an open door policy with our children as they are growing and developing. A 3-year-old and a 13-year-old are totally different, but they both need discipline. We can't just stop disciplining them as they get older. So discipline, sparing the rod, spoiling the child. To spoil a child um, means that you're either indulging them or abusing them. You're on either side of the spectrum. Spoiling just doesn't mean a whiny child who doesn't get their way, who has a temper tantrum, who falls out in the grocery store. That's not the only kind of spoiled child. We also have children who are overly disciplined to the point where their voices are beat out of them. Their creativity is snatched from them. Their voices are silenced. That's a spoiled child, too. A child that sits in silence and is quiet and is seen and not heard. That's a spoiled child, too. So don't get it twisted. Don't think a spoiled child is just a child who always gets his way or doesn't understand what it means to hear no. That's not the only spoiled child, you know? So when you shut your children down, when you don't allow them to emote, when you don't allow them to have a voice, when you tell them to shut up, sit down, be quiet, or when you give them a device when you don't want to be bothered with them. Here, take my phone, turn on a game, get your iPad, go sit over there and play on your iPad while I sit over here and do what I got to do, or I'm on my phone, or I got to work or whatever. We have to spend time in the discipline area. And I'm here to tell you, it's not always fun, it's not always easy, and it takes work. It is much easier to give your child an iPad and tell them to go put on some headphones and not bother you. It's much easier for them to go in their room, turn on their television. It's much easier to do that. It's much easier to hush a crying 2-year-old by giving them a tablet. It's much easier, but it's harder on the other end because when that 2-year-old whose mind has been brain has been rewired to be entertained and unable to sit still without some type of picture in front, when they attend school and they're not able to focus and to learn, now discipline becomes a problem. Now you have a child that's labeled with some type of learning disability only because they spent the developmental years 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on a device, an iPad or a phone. So now discipline is a totally different thing now. Now somebody's being called from the office to come get them because they can't sit still, or they're lashing out, or they're angry because no one has heard them, no one has validated their emotions or their feelings. So discipline is love. Discipline is balance. Discipline is building brighter kids. Because what we want is for our children to move from an external loci or locus of control to an internal locus of control. Because if their discipline is all external, then when they're alone and by themselves, or when they are not under your thumb, they haven't been trained or taught to manage their emotions. They haven't been taught or given an opportunity to express or learn to communicate. So now there's continued external loci, of control. You got the teacher who's trying to keep your child disciplined. They send them to the office. The principal is trying to keep them disciplined. Then they have anger management issues, and the therapist is trying to keep them disciplined, or the guidance counselor is trying to keep them disciplined. Then the police department is trying to keep them disciplined. Then the judicial system comes in and tries to keep them disciplined because they haven't had a chance to learn how to discipline themselves at home with you. So spare the rod, spoil the child. It has many consequences. And I'm not just, like I said, I'm not just talking about spanking. There are other forms of discipline. Journaling is a form of discipline. Allowing your children to write out their feelings, to draw or color out their feelings, give you that picture so that they can express what they're feeling, so that you're able to communicate to them how you're feeling about the situation, how they're feeling about the situation, and talking about it. That's a form of discipline. Having your child sit when they're not in trouble. And that's the other thing. We associate discipline with when they're in trouble. That's not when discipline is really time to show up. Discipline is supposed to come before the child gets in trouble. So one of the things I used to do with my kids is I would have them sit on the couch and set a timer for the number of minutes based on their age. So if they were 3, I would set a timer for 3 minutes and just have them sit quietly for 3 minutes. No book, no tablet, no conversation. Just sit quietly for 3 minutes. Just sit quietly for 3 minutes. Just sit quietly for 4 minutes. Just sit quietly for 5 minutes. And I would do that periodically so that they would learn to sit and to listen. That's a form of discipline. They weren't in trouble. It was just a time for them to say, okay, we have to practice our quiet time now. So when I needed some quiet time, they understood. Hey, y'all, we're going to have some quiet time. We got 5 minutes. Everybody got 5 minutes. And we would sit quietly. And then when I would give them a book to read, they could read it. They would read it. They would sit because they were accustomed to sitting. When we went to church, they were accustomed to sitting. So discipline has to happen outside of correcting behavior. Discipline has to happen in order to shape behavior. So discipline isn't just about you stepped out of line, get back in line. Who you talking to like that? It's not just that. It's also when you come home from school, empty your lunchbox, put it on the counter, change your clothes, wash your hands, get a snack, do your homework. That's discipline. When you wake up in the morning, make your bed, brush your teeth, read your scripture, whatever it is that you have a routine for your child, that's discipline. So I just wanted to share that with you today, because that's my view. This is the Vita view. And my view of discipline is that sparing the rod, spoiling the child, doesn't mean you have to spank and beat your children in order for them not to, be spoiled. They're spoiled on either end of the spectrum, indulgence or abuse. It's discipline. It's the middle where we discipline with love. We discipline with routines. We discipline with known expectations. And then when the behavior needs to be corrected, it is much easier to get them back to where, to where they should be, because they understand, oh, I done got out here and I done stepped out here in a while. I done got outside of my right mind. They know because they have been disciplined, discipled, and then they are able to self-correct sometimes. And isn't it wonderful when children are able to self-correct, to self-direct, to redirect themselves when they know they've done something or they stepped out of line, and they come back and say, Mom, I'm sorry. I was angry and I blurted out and I shouldn't have said that. Or, I forgot, I didn't do my homework. Oh man, I left home and I didn't empty the dishwasher. Mom, I apologize for that. I knew I should have done that. They self-correct. So you're not always yelling and pulling your hair out and trying to get them to do something, because they've already been what? Discipled. So that's all I had to share with you today. I'll be back, of course, because I always have some views, because I am Vita. And this is the Vita View. Vision, education, discipline, and action. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you soon, and be on the lookout. I'm going to be sharing a workshop that's going to be coming up pretty soon. And I'm very excited about it. So keep your ears open and look forward to some information coming out about that. All right. Take care. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. Mwah.